I never thought I'd be that guy, the one whose wife leaves him for a Pilates instructor. I used to laugh at stories like that, thinking, that'll never be me. But here I am, pouring my heart out in this text, navigating through the wreckage of a marriage I thought was solid. My name is Adam, and this is the story of how my life turned upside down. When Sarah and I first got together, we were the envy of our friends. College sweethearts, we married right after graduation. Life was good. We both had decent jobs, a cozy apartment in the city, and dreams of the future. But like a slow leak in a tire, the signs of trouble crept in unnoticed. Small things at first. Sarah started spending more time at the gym, saying she was working on her fitness. I supported her, of course. I mean, who wouldn't want their partner to be healthy? But looking back, I should have noticed that more time turned into hours that stretched late into the evenings. At first, I didn't mind. I went out with friends or binged on Netflix while she was sweating it out, thinking she'd come home and tell me about her progress. But it wasn't long before her late-night gym sessions became an excuse for her to avoid me. When she did come home, I could see it in her eyes. She was different, distant. Whenever I tried to engage her in conversation, she brushed me off, claiming she was just tired from her workouts. I wanted to believe her, I really did. But my gut instinct whispered that something was off. One Friday evening, I decided to surprise her by cooking her favorite dinner. I prepped everything, lit candles, and even put on some music to create the perfect atmosphere. 7 p.m. passed, then 8 p.m. By 9 p.m., I was packing the apartment, anxiety gnawing at my stomach. I tried calling her, but it went straight to voicemail. She finally strolled in around 10 p.m., hair disheveled, wearing workout clothes stained with sweat. I felt the frustration bubble up inside me. "Where have you been?" I asked, trying to keep my tone calm. "Oh, just the gym," she replied dismissively, waving her hand as if it were no big deal. "You said you would be home for dinner," I pressed. "Yeah, but I lost track of time. I was working with my instructor on some new routines," she said, and I could detect a hint of defensiveness in her voice. That was when I started to notice the little lies. The way she would avoid my gaze when she spoke about her workouts, or how she would suddenly drop the name of her instructor, Mike, into casual conversation. It felt rehearsed, like she was trying to ensure I wouldn't ask too many questions. What drove me to dig deeper was the gut feeling that churned in my stomach. So one night I decided to do some sleuthing of my own. I checked her social media and found photos of her at the gym, smiling, laughing, and being all touchy-feely with Mike. My heart raced as I scrolled through a few more. There they were, pictures of her posing with him, looking happier than I had seen her in months. That night I barely slept. I felt like I was living in a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. I knew I had to confront her, but how? I wasn't sure if I was ready for the fallout that would come from it. But I couldn't let this go on any longer. I had to know the truth. The following morning, I confronted her in the kitchen. I knew I had to keep my composure, but the anger was bubbling up inside me. "Sarah, we need to talk," I said, my voice steady but tense. "What about?" she replied, feigning indifference as she poured herself a cup of coffee. "I saw the pictures," I said, unable to contain the hurt in my voice. Her face went pale, and suddenly the room felt charged with tension. She set her cup down and faced me. "What pictures?" she asked, trying to act clueless. "Don't play dumb with me, Sarah. I know about Mike. I know you're cheating on me." Her reaction was not what I expected. Instead of the guilt-ridden answer I had hoped for, she laughed, a cruel, mocking sound that echoed in my ears. "Oh, please, Adam, you really think you can just throw around accusations like that?" That's when the floodgates opened. I poured out my feelings, the confusion and pain that had been eating at me. I told her how I had trusted her, how I had stood by her through everything, only for her to turn around and betray me. "How could you do this?" I yelled, desperate for answers. "Well, maybe if you had paid more attention to me instead of your video games or your stupid friends, I wouldn't have felt the need to seek out someone who actually appreciates me." She shot back, her voice dripping with venom. Her words felt like a knife in my chest. I had been supportive and loving, and yet she twisted the situation to blame me. With every word she said, I felt my heart shattering into pieces. As the confrontation went on, I could see the ice in her eyes and realized there was no remorse, no sign of regret. She was more interested in defending her actions than mending our shattered relationship. It became clear. My marriage was crumbling before my eyes, and it was time for me to face the reality that I had been living a lie. I could feel the walls closing in on me, the weight of betrayal becoming unbearable. I had two choices: to fight for a marriage that was already lost or to accept what was happening and find my own path. The emotional journey I was about to embark on was going to be painful, but I knew I had to make a choice. And so I stood there, heart racing and mind reeling, realizing that I had to find a way forward, even if it meant walking away from the life I had always known. The days following the confrontation were a blur, a strange mix of anger, sadness, and disbelief. I felt like I was moving through a fog, emotions crashing over me like waves that wouldn't recede. Sarah continued to live in our apartment, and it was like sharing space with a ghost. We walked around each other in silence, avoiding conversations that would only ignite the tension. The atmosphere was heavy, charged with unspoken words and unresolved feelings. I turned to my friends for support, hoping to find some clarity. My best friend, Mark, was the first person I called. We met at our usual bar, a small dive where we'd spent countless nights laughing and talking about life. Sitting across from him, I felt the weight of the world on my shoulders as I recounted everything that had happened. "Dude, she's cheating on you with her Pilates instructor. That's some next-level betrayal," Mark said, shaking his head in disbelief. "I can't believe you're still living with her." "I don't know what to do," I admitted, my voice cracking. "Part of me wants to kick her out, but I'm still holding on to some hope that we can fix this. But then I think about her with him and I can't. I feel like I'm suffocating." Mark leaned back, clearly thinking. "You can't fix something that's already broken, man. She made her choice, and it sounds like she doesn't give a damn about you. You're better off without that kind of toxicity in your life." His words resonated deep within me. I felt anger surging again, but this time it was directed not just at Sarah but at myself for letting it go on for so long. I needed to reclaim my life, to find a way out of the chaos. But how? That night, after returning home, I decided to confront Sarah again. I had done enough brooding. We needed to talk. I found her in the living room, scrolling through her phone, a look of indifference on her face. "Sarah, we need to have a serious conversation about our future," I said firmly, trying to keep my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. "Fine," she replied, tossing the phone aside. "What do you want to talk about?" I took a deep breath. "I can't keep pretending that everything is okay. You're clearly involved with Mike, and it's tearing me apart. I want you to be honest with me about what you want. Do you want to be with him?" She rolled her eyes, a habit I had come to detest. "I don't owe you explanations, Adam. You've made it easy for me to look elsewhere. You don't even care about what I want. Is that what this is about? Because I've been supportive and caring and you chose to cheat on me instead of talking to me." She shrugged. "I just got tired of being with someone who doesn't appreciate me. I wanted to feel desired, and Mike makes me feel that way." In that moment, something inside me snapped. "So, you're just going to throw everything we built together away for a guy you met at the gym? That's it?" My voice was rising and I could feel the heat in my cheeks. "Yes, that's it. I've made my choice," she shot back, her defensive demeanor unwavering. I stood there, feeling a mix of anger and despair. I had been searching for answers, but all I received was more pain. It was clear that Sarah had moved on, her heart already entangled with someone else, and I was left holding the pieces of a shattered dream. After that conversation, I knew I had to take action. I couldn't stay in the apartment, surrounded by memories of happier times that now felt tainted. I started looking for a new place, an apartment that could fit my budget, somewhere I could reclaim my independence and begin anew. The search was bittersweet. I visited places with peeling paint and outdated decor, but each step away from our shared home felt like a step toward healing. I imagined what it would be like to live alone, free from the constant reminders of betrayal. I wanted to rediscover myself, to walk taller, alone and proud. As I moved forward, I realized I needed to sever ties with the past completely. I began packing my things, boxing up the remnants of our life together. I came across our wedding album, and for a moment I hesitated. I flipped through the pages, memories rushing back of a love that felt so genuine at the time. But now those moments were tainted by lies and infidelity. I took a deep breath, closed the album, and shoved it into a box. I would not let those memories define me anymore. I needed to focus on the future and what lay ahead. I had friends who supported me, new possibilities waiting on the horizon, and a chance to rebuild myself. As I continued to pack, I realized I had more strength than I thought. This experience, painful as it was teaching me resilience. I no longer wanted to be the guy who let himself be walked all over. I wanted to be someone who stood his ground, who valued himself enough to walk away from a toxic relationship. And then there was the question of revenge. Part of me felt a flicker of anger that wanted to lash out, to show Sarah that I could move on too. But I quickly suppressed that thought. Revenge wouldn't make me feel better. It would only lead to more bitterness. I decided to focus on my own journey instead of getting tangled in a web of spite. But the idea of a confrontation with Mike lingered in the back of my mind. Did I want to confront him? Tell him how he had ruined my life? I wrestled with the idea, knowing it would do nothing to help me heal but feeling a strange itch for justice. I decided that I would let the universe handle that. I would focus on me, finding a new place to live, rekindling friendships and rediscovering my passions. I was ready to take control of my life again, and that felt like a powerful step forward. It was time to rise from the ashes, stronger than before. Finding a new apartment was both exhilarating and daunting. Each place I visited was a step away from my old life, a chance to carve out a new existence free of Sarah's betrayal. I looked at bright one-bedroom units with large windows that let in sunshine, and I could envision myself living there, cooking, inviting friends over, and enjoying my own space. Eventually, I found a cozy apartment in a neighborhood that felt vibrant and alive. It was a one-bedroom with hardwood floors, a tiny kitchen, and a balcony where I could sit outside with a cup of coffee. The moment I stepped inside, I felt a spark of hope. It was as if the walls were whispering promises of new beginnings, and I was ready to embrace them. Moving day came, and I was filled with a strange mix of relief and sadness as I packed my last box. I left behind the memories of what used to be, but not without a sense of closure. I was ready to close that chapter of my life and begin anew, alone but determined. In the weeks following my move, I immersed myself in my new routine. I started hitting the gym regularly, channeling the frustration and heartbreak into workouts. I felt stronger physically, but emotionally, I was still navigating a complex landscape of feelings. I made an effort to connect with friends, going out for drinks and sharing my experiences. Each laugh and conversation helped chip away at the heaviness I had carried with me. Though I was attempting to move on, the thought of Sarah haunted me. I couldn't help but wonder how she was doing, whether she was still with Mike, and if she ever thought about what we had. I knew I had to confront those questions head-on, especially if I ever wanted to fully heal. One night, I decided to take a walk to clear my mind. As I strolled through my new neighborhood, I unexpectedly found myself in front of the gym where Sarah had spent so much time with Mike. My heart raced as I stood outside, memories flooding back, her laughter, her excitement about her workouts, all the times I had cheered her on. It felt surreal being on the other side of the glass, a world that used to be mine now completely alien. I contemplated going inside, but my gut instinct screamed against it. I didn't want to set foot in a place that had become a monument to my pain. Instead, I turned to walk away, but then I spotted a familiar face, a woman I recognized from my past visits to the gym when Sarah would drag me along. Her name was Kelly, and she had always been friendly, often chatting with Sarah. "Adam," she called out, waving as she approached. "Hey, Kelly," I replied, forcing a smile. "Good to see you. I heard about Sarah and the whole situation. I'm really sorry, man," she said, her tone sincere. "Thanks," I muttered, unsure of how to respond. It was strange being on the receiving end of pity, but it also felt oddly validating. "Are you okay?" she asked, genuine concern etched on her face. "I'm getting there," I replied, "just trying to figure things out." "Well, if you ever want to talk or need a workout buddy, I'm here," she offered. Our conversation shifted to lighter topics, exercise routines, favorite classes, and for the first time in weeks I felt a flicker of happiness. Maybe I could find new connections, new friendships, even if they weren't romantic. But as we said our goodbyes and I walked home, the itch for confrontation with Mike returned. I began to wonder if I should confront him, tell him how he had shattered my life. I imagined scenarios where I'd find him at the gym, approach him calmly and say, "Do you know what you've done?" But beneath that anger lay a stronger desire to move forward without being tethered to my past. Days turned into weeks, and my new routine started to feel like a normal life again. I embraced the solitude, finding comfort in my own company. I picked up hobbies I had long neglected, cooking, reading, and even experimenting with writing. The little things began to fill the void left by Sarah, and I realized I didn't need anyone to make me feel whole. Yet, there would be moments when the loneliness would creep in. Late at night in the quiet of my apartment, I'd think about Sarah and Mike, envisioning them together, and the anger would bubble to the surface again. I was constantly wrestling with the desire for revenge against the sadness that stemmed from my lost marriage. Then, one fateful evening, I received a text from an unknown number. My heart raced as I opened it, thinking it might be from a friend or maybe even Sarah, though I quickly dismissed the idea. The message read, "You need to know the truth about Sarah. Meet me at the coffee shop on 5th at 3 p.m. tomorrow." My curiosity piqued. A mix of dread and anticipation washed over me. Who was this person and what truth did they have to share? My mind raced with possibilities. Was it someone from the gym, a former friend, or maybe even someone connected to Sarah? I decided to go. What did I have to lose? I needed answers, and if this was my chance to learn something that could help me move on, I had to take it. The next day, I arrived at the coffee shop a bit early. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee filled the air, and I sat at a table in the corner, my heart racing with anticipation. I was ready to confront whatever the truth may be. A few minutes later, a woman in her mid-30s approached my table. She had dark hair and an intensity in her eyes that immediately caught my attention. "You must be Adam," she said, extending her hand. "Yes, and you're?" "I'm Lisa. I know Sarah," she replied, her tone serious. My stomach dropped. "Look, I know this is strange, but I wanted to talk to you about what's been happening. There are things you need to hear, things that Sarah isn't telling you." I felt a mix of apprehension and intrigue. What did she know? Was this the confrontation I had been waiting for? "What do you mean?" I asked, leaning forward, eager to hear what she had to say. Lisa glanced around as if ensuring no one was eavesdropping. "It's about Mike. Sarah's not as happy as she pretends to be." The words hung in the air, heavy with implications. "Go on," I urged, my heart pounding in my chest. As she began to speak, I knew I was about to uncover more about Sarah's affair than I ever anticipated, and the knowledge would either serve as my catalyst for closure or plunge me deeper into turmoil. And in that moment, I realized this conversation could change everything. Lisa took a moment to collect her thoughts, and I could see the hesitation in her eyes. It was like she was weighing the impact of her words carefully, as if she understood just how much they could affect me. I leaned in closer, my heart racing with a mix of hope and dread. "Sarah and Mike, it's not what you think," Lisa finally said, her voice low. "At least it didn't start that way. They were never serious, despite how it looks on social media. I know because I overheard conversations at the gym. You wouldn't believe the things she said." "What do you mean?" I asked, a knot forming in my stomach. "What did she say?" "Well, for starters, she talks about you. A lot." Lisa paused, seemingly choosing her words carefully. "She frequently mentions how she feels trapped in her life with you. It's like she's trying to convince herself that she made the right choice to leave." I felt a mixture of anger and heartbreak wash over me. Trapped. She had everything I could offer. We had a good life together, I exclaimed, frustration bubbling to the surface. "I know, but listen, she feels like she lost her identity in the marriage. She thinks she has to be a certain way to fit into the mold of what a good wife looks like. And then she met Mike, who made her feel free and empowered. But it's been a roller coaster for her. The happiness she displayed was just a facade." The more she spoke, the more I felt my heart sink. "So, what you're saying is that she's not actually happy with him, she's just using it as an escape." Exactly, Lisa said, leaning forward. I'm not defending her actions, but I thought you should know the truth. I've seen them together, and while there's chemistry, it's a mess. There's a lot of drama, and she's not the only one involved. Mike has his own baggage. Baggage? Like what? I pressed, desperate for clarity. Let's just say he has a reputation at the gym, Lisa replied, glancing around again. He's charming, but he's also a player. Sarah's not the first woman he's gotten involved with, and I doubt she'll be the last. The way she talks about him, there's insecurity in her voice. It's like she knows he's not in it for the long haul, but she's so caught up in the thrill that she ignores the red flags. I felt a whirlwind of emotions, a mixture of anger at Sarah, pity for her, and an overwhelming need to confront her about everything I was learning. But part of me was also grateful to Lisa for shedding light on the situation. It was a reality check I desperately needed. Why are you telling me this? I asked, trying to understand her motives. I've seen what infidelity can do to people, she said, her gaze softening. I've been on the other side of it. It destroys families, friendships, everything you hold dear. I just thought you deserved to know. I want you to be able to heal. You deserve better than this. As her words sank in, I felt a surge of empowerment. The knowledge that Sarah was floundering in her new relationship and not living some perfect life gave me a sense of relief. I didn't want her back, she had betrayed me, but knowing that she was struggling too made me feel less alone in my pain. Thank you, Lisa. Really, I said, appreciating her honesty. This helps more than you know. After we finished our coffee, I walked home with my mind racing. I didn't want to dwell on Sarah's misery, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I had to confront her. I needed to bring all of this to light. Perhaps this was my chance to regain my power, to finally tell her that I wouldn't be her second choice or her escape route. That evening I texted Sarah. We need to talk. Can we meet at the park tomorrow afternoon? Her response was immediate. What's this about? I'll explain when I see you. Just be there. I felt a mix of anxiety and determination as I prepared for the confrontation. I had so many emotions swirling inside me, anger, sadness, confusion, but now I had clarity about her situation. I wasn't going into this blindly. I had the upper hand. The next day, I arrived at the park and found a bench to sit on, trying to calm my nerves as I waited. The trees rustled in the mild breeze, and children laughed as they played nearby. I felt the weight of the world on my shoulders, but I also felt stronger than I had in weeks. When Sarah arrived, she looked apprehensive, her eyes darting around as if sensing the tension in the air. She approached cautiously, her body language guarded. "Okay, what's going on?" she asked, her tone defensive. "I found out some things," I said, holding her gaze, "about you and Mike." Her expression shifted, a flash of anxiety crossing her face. "What do you mean?" I took a deep breath. "I spoke with someone who knows you, and they told me that you've been struggling. You're not as happy as you're pretending to be, are you?" Her eyes widened, and I could see the walls she had built around herself beginning to crack. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't lie to me, Sarah. I know about the conversations you've had at the gym. You're not living some fairy tale with him. You feel trapped, and you're using Mike as an escape. It's not working, is it?" She hesitated, and for a fleeting moment I saw vulnerability flash across her face. "How could you know all of this? It doesn't matter how I found out. What matters is that you've been dishonest with me and with yourself. You've put me through hell while you run off with some guy who doesn't care about you," I said, my voice steady but filled with emotion. "I didn't mean to hurt you, Adam. I just felt lost," she admitted, her voice faltering. "But you chose to betray me. You could have talked to me, but you didn't. You ran away instead." "Why? I thought I was making a choice that would make me happier," she replied, the defensiveness creeping back into her tone. "I thought I needed to find myself. What you needed was to communicate. Instead, you chose deceit, and look where it got you. Now you're stuck in a situation that's making you unhappy, and you know it." Her gaze dropped to the ground, and I could see the tears brimming in her eyes, but I didn't feel pity for her. I felt empowered, reclaiming my narrative after years of feeling lost in someone else's tale. "I don't want to be a backup plan, Sarah. I deserve better than that, and so do you. You can't just keep running away from your problems. You need to face them, and if that means you need to let go of Mike and focus on yourself, then do it. But don't drag me into your mess." "I know I messed up," she said quietly, choking back tears. I never meant for it to come to this. Then take responsibility for your actions, I replied. I won't be here waiting for you to figure it out. I'm done being your safety net. The silence between us was palpable, heavy with the weight of our shared history. I realized then that this was not just a confrontation, it was a pivotal moment of closure for me. I didn't need to hold on to the anger or the hurt anymore. I could finally move on. I stood up, ready to leave, but I turned back to her one last time. I hope you find what you're looking for, Sarah, but it won't be with me. As I walked away, I felt lighter. The burden of betrayal had started to lift, replaced by a newfound sense of freedom. I wasn't just walking away from Sarah, I was walking toward my own future, one that didn't involve the shadows of our past. I felt empowered, ready to embrace whatever life had in store for me next. In the days that followed my confrontation with Sarah, I felt an unexpected sense of liberation. It was as if I had shed the weight of the past and was finally free to breathe. I had not only confronted the reality of our broken relationship, but had also made a decisive choice. For my own well-being, I threw myself into my work and my new life. I found a rhythm in my daily routine, discovering hobbies and interests I had long neglected. I joined a local book club, exploring new genres and discussing literature over coffee with fellow book lovers. I took up cooking classes, experimenting with new recipes and learning to whip up dishes I'd never dreamed of making. It felt good to invest in myself, to prioritize my own happiness and growth. But there were still moments of loneliness. I'd sometimes see couples walking hand in hand at the park or hear friends talking about their relationships, and I'd feel a pang of longing. I missed the companionship, the intimacy, the shared dreams. Yet in those moments, I reminded myself that I had chosen this path, one that prioritized my well-being over the toxic remnants of my past. Then one evening, while browsing through a local bookstore, I bumped into Lisa, the woman who had provided me with the information about Sarah and Mike. She was flipping through the pages of a novel, her brow furrowed in concentration. "Hey, Adam," she said, her face lighting up as she recognized me. "Hey, Lisa, fancy seeing you here," I replied, feeling a genuine smile spread across my face. "Are you enjoying your new place?" she asked, genuinely curious. "I am actually. It feels like a fresh start," I said. "Thanks again for what you told me. It helped me find closure." "I'm really glad to hear that," she replied, and there was an earnestness in her eyes that I found refreshing. "You deserve to be happy." We chatted for a while, discussing our favorite books and authors. As the conversation flowed, I found myself effortlessly laughing and sharing stories. It felt nice to connect with someone new, especially someone who understood the complexities of relationships. "Would you like to grab a cup of coffee sometime?" Lisa asked, her tone casual but hopeful. I hesitated for a moment, considering my feelings and the timing. I wasn't rushing into anything. The wounds from my past were still fresh. But Lisa seemed kind and genuine, and I was ready to explore new friendships without the baggage of my previous relationship hanging over me. "Sure, I'd like that," I said, feeling a hint of excitement at the prospect of moving forward. We exchanged numbers and agreed to meet the following week. As I walked home that evening, I felt a mix of nervousness and anticipation. Could this be the beginning of something new? I didn't want to dive headfirst into a relationship, but the idea of companionship was becoming more appealing by the day. The days leading up to our coffee date were filled with a sense of optimism. I focused on self-care, treating myself to new clothes, trying out new restaurants and spending time with friends. I was becoming reacquainted with the person I had lost during my marriage, and I liked who I was becoming. When the day of the coffee date arrived, I felt a flutter of excitement. I arrived at the cafe early, nerves tingling in my stomach as I waited for Lisa. She walked in, looking radiant in a casual outfit that perfectly suited her style. "Hey you," she said, her smile brightening the room. "Hey, thanks for meeting me," I replied, genuinely pleased to see her. We settled into a cozy corner of the cafe and the conversation flowed easily. We talked about our favorite books, movies, and even shared stories about our past relationships. Lisa was open and relatable, and I found myself feeling comfortable in her presence. For the first time in a long while, I began to relax, allowing myself to enjoy the moment. As we chatted, I couldn't help but notice how much I was drawn to her genuine nature. She had a warmth that made me feel seen and appreciated. Unlike my past experiences, this felt different, authentic, and without the pretenses that had clouded my previous relationship. "Can I ask you something?" Lisa said, her tone shifting slightly as she looked at me seriously. "Of course," I replied, intrigued. "Have you thought about what you want moving forward? I mean, in terms of relationships." Her question caught me slightly off guard. I had focused so much on healing and reclaiming my independence that I hadn't thought about what I wanted long term. "I guess I want to take things slow," I admitted. "After everything with Sarah, I don't want to rush into anything. I want to make sure I'm ready to let someone in again." "That's completely understandable," she said, nodding. "Relationships should be built on a solid foundation, and it's smart to take your time." We continued to talk, and I felt the tension in my shoulders ease as the conversation flowed naturally. There was something refreshing about Lisa. She didn't pressure me or try to fit me into a mold. She was simply herself, and it felt liberating. As the evening wore on, I realized how much I enjoyed her company. This coffee date was different. It felt like a genuine connection, one that was based on respect and understanding. Eventually, we decided to leave the cafe, and as we stepped outside into the crisp evening air, I knew I wanted to see her again. "Would you like to go out again?" I asked a bit shyly. "I'd love to," she replied, her eyes sparkling. As we exchanged goodbyes and made tentative plans for a second date, I felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe I wasn't meant to walk this journey alone after all. Perhaps there was a chance to build something new, something healthy and fulfilling. The following days passed in a haze of anticipation as I waited for our next date. I felt a sense of excitement that I hadn't experienced in a long time. Each text we exchanged felt like a step forward, a step into an uncharted territory that I was ready to explore. But as I navigated this new chapter, I couldn't help but reflect on my past. I realized that while Sarah had shattered my heart, she had also inadvertently pushed me to discover my own strength. I had survived the worst, and now I was ready to embrace a future that didn't revolve around someone else's choices. I learned that healing was a journey, not a destination. It was filled with twists and turns, moments of self-doubt, but also moments of joy. And as I prepared to meet Lisa for our second date, I was ready to face whatever came next, empowered and resilient. But in the back of my mind, I still wondered about Sarah and Mike. Would she ever realize what she had lost? Would she come to terms with the reality of her choices? I didn't have the answers, but I knew I had made my choice. I was moving forward, and there was no looking back. Our second date was everything I had hoped it would be. Lisa and I explored a vibrant neighborhood, visiting local shops, trying new foods, and laughing as we shared stories about our lives. It felt refreshing to be out with someone who was genuinely interested in me, and I found myself relaxing into the moment, allowing the remnants of my past to fade into the background. As we walked through the streets, enjoying the atmosphere, I couldn't help but notice how different this felt compared to my time with Sarah. There was no need to impress each other with lofty ideals or expectations, just two people enjoying each other's company. Lisa was authentic, and in her presence I felt free to be myself without the baggage of past insecurities weighing me down. "So, what do you look for in a partner?" Lisa asked as we sat on a bench, sipping our coffees. "I think I want someone who's open and honest," I replied, reflecting on my recent experiences. "Communication is key for me now. I want a partner who's willing to share their thoughts and feelings, not someone who runs away when things get rough." "Absolutely," she agreed, her eyes bright with understanding. "Relationships are built on trust, and I think it's great that you know what you want." The conversation flowed easily, and I could feel a genuine connection growing between us. As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow around us, I realized I was genuinely happy. I hadn't felt this way in ages, and it was a welcome change from the heaviness I had carried for so long. After our date, we walked back to my apartment, and as we reached the door, Lisa paused. "I had a really great time tonight," she said softly, her gaze locked with mine. "Me too," I replied, feeling a flutter of excitement. "I'm really glad we met." I'm glad too. I'm looking forward to getting to know you better, she said, and for a moment I could sense a hint of something deeper lingering in the air, a possibility of what could blossom between us. As we said our goodbyes, I felt a buzz of anticipation. I had taken the first steps into a new chapter, one that promised growth and connection, and it felt exhilarating. The following weeks were filled with more dates and laughter. Lisa and I explored our shared interests, going to art galleries, trying new cuisines, and even attending a concert. Each experience brought us closer together, and I found myself growing more comfortable with her presence. I also realized that I was no longer haunted by Sarah's memory. I had managed to release the pain of my past, understanding that I couldn't change what had happened. What mattered was how I learned from it, emerging stronger and more self-aware. One evening, after a particularly fun outing, Lisa and I sat on my balcony, watching the stars twinkle against the night sky. I felt a surge of gratitude as I reflected on how far I had come since the day Sarah had left. I turned to Lisa, wanting to express my feelings. "I really appreciate how easy you make it to be myself," I said, feeling vulnerable yet genuine. "After everything that happened, I was scared to open up again, but you've made that so much easier." She smiled warmly, her eyes shining. "I'm glad to hear that. I want us to be real with each other, no pretenses, no games, just honesty." In that moment, I realized how vital it was to find someone who aligned with my values, a partner who could help me heal rather than prolong the hurt. As our relationship deepened, I also learned to cherish the lessons from my past. I recognized that my experience with Sarah had taught me to appreciate the good things in life, to embrace vulnerability, and to seek joy in the present. I occasionally thought of Sarah, wondering how she was doing. I hoped she was working through her issues, learning about herself, and finding her own path to happiness. While I still felt a sense of betrayal regarding what had happened, I also recognized that I didn't need to carry that burden anymore. Then, one day, while catching up with friends over dinner, I received a text from Sarah. My heart raced as I read it. "Hey Adam, I hope you're doing well. I've been doing a lot of thinking and I realized I need to apologize for everything. I'm truly sorry for how things ended between us." I stared at the screen, processing the words. A part of me felt anger rise. How could she just reach out after everything? But another part of me felt an odd sense of closure. She was acknowledging her mistakes, and that was a step in the right direction for her. Healing. I took a moment to gather my thoughts before responding. I needed to express my feelings honestly, but I also wanted to be respectful of the progress I had made. "Thank you for reaching out, Sarah. I appreciate your apology. I've been focusing on my own growth and healing, and I wish you the best as you navigate your own journey." With that, I hit send, feeling a weight lift off my shoulders. I didn't need to dwell on the past. I could allow the door to close without slamming it shut. Moving forward, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. I was ready to embrace my life, to build new connections, and to allow myself to be happy without the shadows of my past clouding my vision. As I continued to explore my relationship with Lisa, I recognized the beauty of starting anew, of building a life grounded in mutual respect, honesty, and genuine affection. The journey hadn't been easy, but through it all, I learned to walk taller, alone and proud, but now with a partner beside me who appreciated me for who I was. And that was more than enough.